So let's talk about something that might have crossed your mind before. Why on earth is it called Good Friday? I mean, really think about it. It seems like a total contradiction, right? Well, today we're going to get to the bottom of it because the story behind the name is actually pretty fascinating. It's a huge paradox when you think about it. I mean, this is the day Christians commemorate the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. We're talking about immense suffering and death. It's traditionally a day of deep mourning and solemn reflection. So to call it good, it just doesn't seem to fit, does it? Okay, so it really does feel like a contradiction. But, like any good mystery, there are clues, and they're hidden in history and language and even in theology. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to investigate the story behind this very, very strange name. And here's where it gets really interesting. If you look at how other languages talk about this day, you'll see that English is kind of the odd one out. Take German, for instance, Karfreitag. That literally means sorrowful Friday. Okay, that tracks. Spanish, Viernes Santo, or Holy Friday. Yep, makes sense. Even in Greek, they call it Great Friday. And get this, way back in Old English, it was called Long Friday, probably because the church services were, well, long. So that leaves us with the big question. Where did we get good from? All right, so our first stop on this investigation has to be the language itself. We need to crack the linguistic code here. And to do that, we have to look at the history of the word good. Okay, so when you start digging, you find two main theories. The first one is a pretty popular folk theory, the idea that good is just a messed up version of God's, God's Friday. And that kind of makes sense, right? I mean, look at the word goodbye. That came from God be with ye. So it's plausible. But the second theory is the one that pretty much all the experts, the linguists and historians, agree on, and it's that the word good used to mean something completely different. And here it is. This is pretty much the key piece of evidence that cracks the case. The scholarly consensus is that good in this context is an old, outdated word for pious or holy. So, and this is the big takeaway, when people first started calling it Good Friday, they weren't saying it was a nice Friday or a pleasant Friday. They were saying it was a holy Friday. And we actually have proof of this. In Middle English, the word good was basically an adjective used for any day or season that the church considered holy. So in that religious context, good was just another way of saying holy. Simple as that. And this wasn't just a one-time thing either. It was used all over the place. For example, think about how we still sometimes call the Bible the good book. It's the same idea. And historically, people used to call Christmas Good Tide, and even the Wednesday during Holy Week was known as Good Wednesday. So all the little linguistic puzzle pieces, they really do fit together perfectly. Good just meant holy. So case closed, right? It just means Holy Friday. Well, not quite. The history of the word is really only half the story. There's another, maybe even more profound reason that the name Good Friday has stuck around. And this one is all about theology. See, for believers, the word good also works on a completely different level. The meaning goes way beyond just the history of the word. It gets to the very core of what Christians believe about the purpose of Jesus' death. This passage from the Bible really hits the nail on the head. The Christian belief isn't that the crucifixion was just a horrible, tragic execution. It's seen as a deliberate, purposeful sacrifice, an event that was meant to bring about a very specific and very good outcome for all of humanity. So let's just walk through the logic here from that perspective. Step 1, the crucifixion. A terrible, horrific event, no question. But step 2, it's also seen as the ultimate sacrifice, where Jesus' death paid the penalty for human sin. And that leads to step 3, reconciliation with God. The idea is that this sacrifice made it possible for humanity to have a relationship with God again. So you have this awful event that is called good because of its incredible redemptive outcome. And because this day has such a deep and profound meaning, it's led to some really amazing and unique traditions all across the globe. We're not just talking about church services, we're talking about customs that really show how significant this day is to people everywhere. And the sheer diversity of these traditions is just fascinating. I mean, in Bermuda, people fly kites to symbolize Christ's ascension into heaven. In England, you've got the classic tradition of eating hot cross buns. Then you go to a place like the Philippines, and you see these incredibly intense devotional reenactments of the crucifixion. And over in Germany, it's actually a silent holiday, where public dancing is banned by law. It's called the Tanzverbot, all to respect the somber feeling of the day. Okay, so after digging into the linguistics and the theology, where does that leave us? What's the final verdict on our little investigation?
Well, it seems Good Friday really means two things at the same time. On one level, it's the Holy Friday, coming from that ancient meaning of the word good. And on another, deeper level for believers, it's the Friday that, even in its absolute darkness, led to an ultimately good outcome: the reconciliation between humanity and God.
And that really leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? Words have so much power, so much hidden history. Now that you know the story behind the name, this dual meaning, the holy day and the good outcome, does it change how you think about the day itself? It's a pretty interesting question to ponder. Thanks for digging into this with me today.